Welcome to this week's the neXup podcast, where we bring sensible tech to sensible people. I have a lot to get into today. We're going to talk about just what broke as far as consumer news this week, how it affects you, what's important about it, should you get excited about it. I have a couple of quick reviews. I'm going to be concluding also my nexus-pixel history. I started this about 2 weeks ago on this podcast. I've also been writing about it on my website. So, yes, we're going to have the conclusion of that today. And then there will be a follow-up to Google software. I've been talking a lot about Google phones, and, this is something that's going to be on the back of my Pixel history, whether Google software is still worth buying, or is it really worth buying with their hardware not being up to par with the competition? So before we get started, let's go ahead and get through this intro real quick. I am your host, PC747, and this is the neXup. And what is the neXup? Well, this started out as a website that started a year ago, where it's still going right now, where I like to write up articles based on tech and gadgets and stuff like that. And evolved into a podcast that is posted every Friday on SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and now we just added it to TuneIn Radio. So if you have TuneIn Radio, you'll be able to hear it there as well. So I am proud to be able to announce that. And if you happen to not catch on any of those, I will also upload it to my YouTube channel. So just to give you an idea what got me into this, I picked up the Motorola Droid almost a decade ago. I was someone new to understanding how to use tech in general. I came from the iPhone 3GS, had some issues with it as a result of the problems with it coming from the manufacturer. When I went to go to AT&T to try to get it resolved, I ran into some problems with that. I got frustrated with it and decided to go somewhere else. Went to Verizon. At the time, they had the Motorola Droid there. The rep there suggested I should pick it up, and I took it home, and the only thing that stood out to me at the time was, it had that cool Droid sound, but at the time I just didn't get an idea of what made this phone so appealing, so much so that I was willing to take the phone back and pick up a BlackBerry Storm. But thankfully the rep convinced me to stick with it, and I am so glad I did. Then came the rooting, and I got involved in that and rooted my phone and got involved in the community. And being a part of the Android community, especially as we got a chance to see it grow, especially for the Droid, it was exciting, and I learned a lot from it. And being a part of it, and the more and more I learned, the more and more I wanted to share. I started sharing and helping people with the issues they were having rooting their phone. Eventually, I got into writing about the upcoming Android phones and software on a website called droidforums.net that is still there. And the more and more I started doing it, the more and more I started developing a passion for the software and the community. And I just kind of stuck with it. And eventually I said, you know what? I wonder what it would be like if I were to have my own website and eventually my own podcast. And that's pretty much what got me here. I'm doing that now. And I am excited to do this. I am excited to be here another week and talk about just a lot of things involving tech. Now, this mainly started out as mainly an Android podcast, but I evolved talking about other things in tech because for me, as much as Android is the platform I gravitate to, I actually, enjoy a lot of platforms. Apple, I like what they do over there. I enjoy the competition that continues to be going between Apple and Android manufacturers, as we see they'll continue to compete and cause each other to get better. And even outside of smartphones, I like seeing what is going on just in general with technology, especially involving, cord cutting, and we're seeing how as consumers continue to demand more, we're seeing the market evolve and grow to meet those demands and even exceed that. And I'm just glad to be a part of that and talk about it and seeing how that continues to go in a way that really challenges what we ever imagined what we could have as far as consumers. So, yeah, that's kind of what got me into this, and this what this site and this podcast is all about talking about that. But let's go ahead and get started talking about the news of the week. And I'm going to kick this off talking about Samsung. So we know Samsung will have the Unpack event in a couple weeks where they will be talking about the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus. And, that is something that really did dominate headlines over the past couple of weeks. But we can't forget about the Samsung Galaxy Fold because it looks like they have a fix for this phone. And here is pretty much what they said are the fixes to be expected. So the first thing, the top protected layer of the Infinity Flex display has been extended beyond the bezel, making it apparent that it is an integral part of the display structure and not meant to be removed. The other thing they said is Galaxy Fold features additional reinforcement to better protect the device from external particles while maintaining its signature foldable experience. The top and bottom of the hinge area have been strengthened with newly added protection caps, additional metal layers underneath the Infinity Flex display has been included to reinforce the protection of the display. The space between the hinge and the body of the Galaxy Fold has been reduced. So, if you haven't been following the Galaxy Fold, and which I know a lot of you guys, if you are in the tech community, you know, and even if you're not, I'm pretty sure you heard about the news on various sites, whether it be it popped up on your phone or just turn on the TV or the news. But this device was supposed to be released in April, and Samsung had the idea that, look, a lot of people, they want something that is really the perfect mix between a phone and a tablet. And yes, we got phones larger with the phablet, something that they created with the Note series. But there are still someone who wants something a little bit larger. Maybe not quite 10 inches as far as tablet, but somewhere in the middle. The problem is, how are you going to, keep up with it without always having a backpack? And the idea is, well, you fold it. You fold it in half and it becomes the size of a phone. And this is opening up a market of ideas which you can do with this device. And they're not the only one who's really pursuing it. In fact, they were not the first ones. But of all the devices out there, Samsung may have the better looking of the devices. And as we continue to look at what they're trying to do with the Fold, it have a lot of people excited. The problem is that it did have some issues. And unfortunately, a lot of the issues that were found in April were picked up by reviewers. And it should have been picked up by, Samsung themselves. But they did find it, and they are taking it, or they did take it in, take it back to get it repaired and resolve those issues. But not everyone is quite on board with these fixes. T-Mobile, who were one of the carriers along with AT&T that was going to be the place that was going to have it where people can purchase it. Well, T-Mobile said they're not going to carry it. And pretty much what they told The Verge is, well, T-Mobile will not carry the Galaxy Fold because we already offer customers a wide range of the latest smartphones. Please reach out to Samsung for any further inquiries. And here are my thoughts on the Fold. Because, again, it's still going to be debuting at $2,000. And that is a lot of money for a device. And I understand, again, why T-Mobile will kind of, hold off on trying to carry it. Because, there will be questions about whether Samsung actually fixed all the problems. And plus, we continue to hash out that this is a year one device. And there are going to be other problems that are going to creep up because, until other people get a chance to play with it and put it through the everyday stresses of the environment that they're in, how they use it, just really in the hands of people in general. Until that happens, you're not going to be able to figure out what will come up of the device. And I can understand that people already knowing that this phone did have some of the problems may complain that, okay, you guys knew this had a problem, you sold it anyway, and you didn't fix it, and you sold it for this much, well, this amount of money, $2,000, and it had problems still. So I'm not happy with it. I demand you guys fix it. And T-Mobile right now, they're doing a much better job with customer service. I had switched to T-Mobile about a couple of months ago from AT&T, and I've been pretty much happy with their service. Their customer service has improved a lot. And I think a lot of credit goes to their CEO for that, who is very adamant about, going everything he can to help their customers. If you have a problem, especially if you on Twitter, you say, I got this problem with T-Mobile. I've actually, posted something where I had some questions, and to have the CEO respond to your Twitter account saying, oh, yes, here's the response to your question, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to have this person reach out to you to continue to, address you whatever concerns you have. That is big. So with T-Mobile doing everything they can to improve their customer service and customer relations, I can see why they wouldn't want to put this on their network and just open up, a Pandora box of issues, especially when now at this point, why would you need it? With it being released in September, you're going to have the new iPhone out there, the new Pixel out there, and a couple other devices that are going to be out there. So you really do not need this to be a part of your portfolio. And for Samsung, April was a good time to put it out there because it was right there where people can play with it in that summer, or spring and summertime, right before the fall release. And now what you're going to have, again, the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus, which are already going to have a high price tag as it is, there's no need for someone to really want to gravitate to that. And in fact, I would say so as someone, if you had to choose between the Galaxy Fold and the Note 10 Pro, I probably would lean or point them more towards the Note 10 Plus because I just feel like that would be more proven, and I don't think you'll have more issues with problems creeping up with that device. With that said, as far as the more interesting of devices, I'm still liking what Samsung doing with the Fold. And for me, even though I may not pick up year one device, I look forward to see where we go with year 2 and year 3. And I really hope we see more manufacturers, continue on with this because I want to adopt it. I really do. I just don't want to adopt the price for it. And I know a lot of customers who probably feel the same way. They're saying they really would like to adopt this device. They just don't want to pay that type of money, not for a phone. Even though you're pitching this as pretty much the perfect phone and tablet hybrid, there are just so many issues we're seeing in the phone as far as aesthetically alone that we want to see improved. That it's hard for us to really pick it up, especially now where we're seeing phones get to the point where they're just getting so much better. So, yeah, I mean, we got to continue on to see this thing evolve and grow to a point where it will overtake the phones and people will be willing to gravitate to it. But, hey, that's where we at with the Samsung Galaxy Fold. So if you're actually still interested in it, you will be able to pick it up in September. And if you do decide to pick it up, I'm curious to see what issues came up, what you like about it in your own personal review. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing those people or people pick those up and adopt it. But let's go ahead and move on to Apple, because Apple decides to buy the mobile arm of Intel. And pretty much the reason why, well, they want to start making their own 5G chips. Now, we know that Intel announced a while back that it was kind of pulling out of the 5G phone business. And that caused Apple to kind of make some peace with Qualcomm, as they kind of had this little patent issue going on. And me personally, I like seeing that Apple is going to continue going down the route of making their own chips, So not only are they going to have their own chips, but they're going to have their own modems now. And basically what they're saying is that we're pretty much going to build everything from the ground up for our phone, not just software, but everything we possibly can. And that excites me, even though I'm not, one who have a lot as far as Apple devices. I do have a MacBook Pro. I did pick up an iPad recently. But, I like seeing that Apple is doing this. I like seeing they decided to do more in house, and it makes sense. I understand why they want to continue to build or all their own hardware if they can, because yes, they would be able to pretty much rein in having to rely on other manufacturers who, yeah, they're pretty much rivaled with, and they don't have to rely so much on them to make their chips, because when you do have to rely on a rival manufacturer to make your chips, and they got their own devices they need to make, you could be put in a situation where you got to deal with shortages and you're waiting on them to fulfill your orders, and it could affect your sales. And we've seen that happen in the past with iPhones, where their sales were affected because they had to rely on someone else to rather make their screens or make their chips. So I understand that right now, this big push for 5G is out there. And early on, Apple is going to have to rely on Qualcomm to supply their chips so they can have 5G phones. But eventually they're going to get to a point where they're going to be able to supply themselves and they can do everything in house. And hopefully that means for, American businesses, in American economy, we see more opportunity for Americans to be able to get involved in the tech industry more. And hopefully this means that it allows us to continue to see Apple evolve and really continues to cement themselves at the manufacturer who, is here in the States and continue to put out some really good smartphones. And again, I really love that Apple, do everything in house and, from the ground up, pretty much make their software and their hardware work so seamlessly together and do an excellent job making sure that everything just work just like I say in perfect harmony almost, to a level that I really wish we can get with Android, and we have yet to get that. We got close, but we not there yet. And to me, that's why Apple continues to sit at the top of the game when it comes to hardware manufacturing and software. Now, as far as continue to talk about, some hardware ideas, Vivo's next phone may have 100% screen to body ratio, basically being all glass. That means no holes, no bezels, no notches. And this leak came from Ice Universe as he put out a picture of pretty much a glass that was all 100%. And man, I'm not just excited about this for the Vivo Next, but what we might see for next year's OnePlus 8 Pro. Because you look at the OnePlus 7 Pro, all they did basically was take what Vivo did with last year's Next and just brought it into this year and added their own little software tweaks and hardware adjustment to make it a better device. And if we can get 100% screen to body ratio with all glass device, can you imagine how nice that's going to look? Of course, there's going to be some challenges, such as one, how are you going to protect it? With people like me who still like to use cases, where I'm going to put the case, how are we going to handle a case, how that's going to work as far as that. And for those who don't want to use a case, I understand there are people who are going to say, look, it's something that's nice, I am not going to put a case on it. But at the same time, you got a phone that has that much glass. How fragile is it going to be? Will it be able to handle drops? Will it be able to handle nicks? Where you're going to have some issues later on where you're going to have to worry about it, reliability of the glass being a problem. As much as we want to continue to see hardware continue to evolve to where it's getting nicer, it's getting more more of a joy to use and to experience, you also have to realize that there is an opportunity where you don't have any metal to protect it anymore. And if glass is glass, it's susceptible to breaks, especially if you drop it, and you also got to look at the other factors that you have playing into it, such as the heat, the internals heating up, the expansion factor, if you're outside in the cold. There's all of those different factors that are weighing on a device that can affect the overall longevity of the device and the reliability of it for customers to have to be concerned about. And even for those wanting to adopt something like this, that has to be in your mind. With that said, continue on, guys. Continue on pushing the envelope, because if you're not pushing the envelope, well, that means we're not going to continue to get to a point where these devices where we're getting better. And speaking of talking about the OnePlus 8 Pro, so I actually decided to pull the trigger and picked up the OnePlus 7 Pro, and I'm gonna do a quick review about it. I'm not gonna really add anything that anyone else haven't said, because there are a number of reviews out there, and honestly, I'm pretty much echoing a lot of what people have said already. But having it in hand myself, and this is me who had decided to move from the OnePlus 6T. I sold it, and I had planned on picking up a OnePlus 7 Pro when it first came out, but decided to hold off. For one, I thought OnePlus would pull another one of their tricks where 6 months later they'll come out with another OnePlus in the same year. So I was expecting to see maybe a OnePlus 7T Pro. So I'm like, okay, just in case they pull that, I'm going to save my money and just wait for that. So that was partially why I decided to do that. And then the more and more I waited, I said, well, I might just go ahead and just wait for the Google Pixel 4, because I was keeping up what was going on with that. And I'm like, well, I might just save my money for that. But honestly, I started getting more and more frustrated with my Pixel 3 XL. I would try to use the camera, and I've talked about on a number of occasions where you would double tap on the power button to quick launch the camera, and to have the thing just like lag. There were been a number of times where there's an opportunity to get a photo right there, and I've never seen a camera lag so bad since, in the modern day Android era. And it's to the point where I'm missing good photos because the thing was lagging so bad, and then not just that, but the overall build, I got frustrated more and more. Another thing I would do on my OnePlus 6T was I would play Street Fighter. It was Street Fighter 4. You could play on Android, and for the most part, it played pretty well. For what I was planning for. Loading up, playing maybe a 2 or 3 minute game or so, maybe more to kill some time, and it performed very well. Well, when I decided to get with the OnePlus 6T and try to do that on my Pixel, man, it was not the same. The gameplay for overall, one, I couldn't enjoy it because I guess I was having a hard time for the phone keeping up with, the intense graphics. I ain't gonna say graphics, but keeping up with it. But also just because how the device was designed, I just couldn't, have the controls in the right spot. It got to the point where, what, forget it. I'm not playing this game anymore. Not on my Pixel 3. It just wasn't worth it. And once I picked up my OnePlus 7 Pro, having that all-screen display pretty much, and yet having that there to made it more enjoyable for playing a game, the performance level. And honestly, as much as we talk about Google having, and I'm going to kind of echo this later, Google having the Premiere software, I got to scratch my head on that because I really feel like OnePlus may be doing a better job with providing stock Android than Google is doing right now. But as far as the device, let me get back to the review. I feel like this device, it checks the boxes. Hardware-wise, I have the 12 gigabyte RAM version and then the 256 gigabyte of internal storage version. And you're talking about $700 for that? That's half the price of what you're going to pay for Samsung's latest Galaxy. And as well, it's going to likely be much cheaper than the Note 10. And as far as hardware, it's on par. And then you got that 90 hertz refresh rate. Let me pull the phone out. I believe it was a 90 hertz refresh rate that is on now. And give me a second to actually go to settings, display. And let's see, where's the refresh rate? 90 hertz, okay. So the 90 hertz refresh rate, and I can switch down to 60 to make it for better battery life, but right now 90 is pretty good. And as far as battery life, by the way, I have a much better battery life on this than I was having on my Google Pixel 3. So overall, this device for me is it's a winner. You're getting what you paid for. I don't feel like you're mixing out. Now, one thing I did have to do, I ended up deciding to use a different launcher. I'm not a fan of OnePlus launcher, so I pretty much have a version of the Pixel launcher on here. I went to XDA and found a way to put that on there. And the other addition I I made was I added a version of Google's Pixel camera. Again, it had to be modded so it worked on this, and you can find that on XDA as well. As a matter of fact, I will provide a link for that below on how you can do that if you decide to pick up a OnePlus 7 Pro. But add those two additions, and for me, I'm loving it. And yes, I for a while, it's like I almost don't want to go back to the Pixel 3. And in fact, the only reason I have not put the Pixel 3 on the market yet, well, actually, there's no excuse why I haven't put the Pixel 3 on the market. So the Pixel 3 may be going to market real soon to get sold, because right now I'm excited about the OnePlus 7 Pro, and good job OnePlus for yet again putting out another device. But let's move on and talk about Nvidia looking to update the Nvidia Shield TV. Now, I don't understand this, especially now. I don't see where they fit. Now, I'm pretty sure someone else will like this, but I've did a review, and I've talked about on a number of occasions about the Nvidia Shield TV, and for me, I just felt like they could not get the games to make it worth it, especially for your casual viewers. Or casual users. I think this is going to be more geared for those who are PC gamers, because if you do game on a PC, you are able to take your PC games and play it on a Nvidia Shield. So there may be a demand for that audience of people, and that will make sense if you're refreshing for that group and you have enough people that demand it and they're going to buy it. Then that makes sense. But for the average consumer, the consumers that I'm really reaching out to who listen to this podcast, it may not gravitate to you, especially now with all the other devices out there with Xbox and PlayStation. And then you got Stadia on the horizon, where there's pretty much pitching that you do not need a hardware. I mean, you don't need a device for this. You don't have to set anything up. You can basically just buy a controller for them, and you don't even need to buy a controller from them. Literally, you just need to have access to Chrome, and you can play a game on the spot. And that's going to be, to me, more appealing right now than this Nvidia Shield TV. But they are going to be refreshing it, and if you're excited about it, this is something for you that you want to jump into, then yeah, stay tuned, because you will get an opportunity to check out the new Nvidia Shield TV. Now, as far as specs, let me see if any specs have been noted. The main thing I'm seeing that is going to be the difference here is that it looks like you're going to have some updates to the Wi-Fi, to the Bluetooth, and as far as the chipset, it looks like it's going to still have the same Tegra X1 T210 chip that's already being used on the 2017 Shield TV. So if they decide to keep the same hardware for the most part, I don't understand why anybody would gravitate to this, especially when, again, you can just, even if you're interested in this device, you could probably pick one up for pretty cheap right now. In fact, I mean, if you're really interested in one, hit me up. I may hook you up with mine for a very cheap price, because I'm not using it. Let's go on to the next thing. Dish could be looking to, help their customers bundle and save by offering phone service. So Charter, Comcast, they already have some kind of deal right now where if you have wireless service with them, you will be able to bundle and save with their TV package. And I know a couple of people who have hit me up and asked me in the past, hey, man, I'm thinking about doing this. Is it worth it? And, my response to them was, well, how often do you use, your phone? Are you a data hog? If so, make sure you read the fine print and make sure that you're not going to be followed. That's going to be a problem for you. But if you don't, and if you compare what you're going to pay for the bundle and save deal versus what you're already paying now, if you're going to end up saving money, it may be a good deal for you, especially if you're able to bring your own phone. And I know that those people, they actually did it, and they said, hey, for the most part, they like it. They're able to do what they need to do. They have no issues. It works for them, and it makes sense. They're saving money, and they move from someone like a Verizon, whatever, to over there. And Comcast, their service is basically Verizon, so it makes sense. And I can understand why Dish would want to jump on such a deal. Now, the way they're looking to acquire this or start this deal is basically they're looking to acquire Boost Mobile as part of the T-Mobile Sprint merger. Right now the T-Mobile Sprint merger is going through some hurdles right now. There are a lot of adversities that are in the way. People questioning whether or not this should be allowed to go through. And one of the ways that T-Mobile is trying to help get this thing through is trying to sell off some of their acquisitions, one being Boost Mobile, which is part of the Sprint network. And basically, T-Mobile looking to sell this to Dish. Now, Charter was actually the company that wanted to buy it. And they were raising some concerns, some questions about it. But it looks like Dish may be the favorite. And actually, I could see where there could be a demand. This can actually help out Dish. Even though there are a lot more people cutting the cord and getting away from it, there is going to always be a demographic that is not going to go to the cord cutting, whether it be because they're in an area where they do not have the speeds for it, or they don't have the internet service that can provide that, because they're not want to pay that package, or they don't understand it. Someone like my grandmother and my uncle, if I was to tell them to cut the cord, for them, it wouldn't make sense. For them, it's like they're better off sticking with what they know. They understand satellite dish. They understand cable. Why? Because someone can go in there, they can plug it up, and it's ready to go. For them to actually have to go to a website or click on something to watch TV, for them, it's just not working for them. And there's a large demographic of people where that just works for them to kind of stay with what they have, and it makes sense. And that same area or those same customers, a lot of them are using Boost Mobile. So because they're not data hog, it saves them money. They're mainly using their phones to make a call, maybe make a text, but they're not really jumping on Twitter. They're not jumping on Facebook. They're not checking out YouTube. A lot of those, or especially like my uncle, he's not looking at that for his phone. Can he make a phone call? Can he make a text? And he's happy. So for him, Boost Mobile or something like a Cricket makes sense. So if he already have that and he already have Dish, it makes sense where he can save money, and it makes it easier for him because when you bundle and save, you can basically make one payment to one company versus have to mail out two separate payments. So I can see where this can be attractive to a certain number of customers, and I can see for Boost why they want to, or for Dish, why they want to add that to their, portfolio, because it would make them able to reach and hold on to more customers, especially in the demographic of a certain age group that may not really be ready to cut the cord. Now let's talk about drone delivery, because UPS will be looking to do just that. So UPS applied to the FAA for certification to be able to fly their drones at night over people and beyond the line of sight. And if they're able to get that approval, they'll be looking to use that to fly medical supplies. Now, right now, they have a company that's already doing that. Because basically what's going on is, they have a subsidiary, or they will be creating a subsidiary called the UPS Flight Forward. And basically it's going to oversee drone operations. Now, they already have a company right now where MatterNet uses their drone to deliver medical supplies basically back and forth to North Carolina. So basically what UPS is looking to do for now is basically start that off by trying to, in North Carolina area, use their drones to deliver medical supply. And eventually, I think they're going to want to see it get beyond medical supplies. But, even if they was to stick for medical supplies for right now, they're saying this is something that could really be a demand, and they can make some money off of this, because I can understand where, especially when I talked about before, when I did talk about drone deliveries, there are some companies that are going to need equipment that deliver in a timely manner where, it has to get from point A to point B in a certain period of time, because of the simple fact that if it's not, then, whether it be the sales or whatever they're working on, it's not going to last being driven or any other means. So this is where it opens the door for that. But that they're looking at this beyond just medical supplies. They're looking to open this up to just customers in general. Because can you imagine? I mean, if they open this up to beyond just medical supplies to just supplies in general. And I could see a certain number of people looking at this. And I've said it before. I can see people who are stuck in a house who maybe need supplies, or for the elderly, they maybe need their medicines. And imagine this, because I know people that actually have to rely on, transportation to get back and forth to get medical supplies, whether it be to get updated prescriptions, something like that. And, if instead of them having to rely on a family member or a busing service to pick them up and take them there, especially if they're having a day where they're not feeling too good, they can't really get around, and they're not really feeling comfortable going out there, they can just call up their doctor and say, look, today I'm really not feeling, strong enough to be able to get up and head out to you. But it's getting to that point where it's time for me to get an update to my prescription. Can you get this out to me? And they can fly a drone to them. Another big application, let's just say, and this what I think would be the biggest use for this. Now, you have a camper trip going on, and they're out there in the woods, and something happens where a kid gets bitten by a snake or stung by something, or even have an asthma attack. And yes, kids should know to pack their asthma medicine, but something could happen where they didn't. Kids are kids, and now you have a medical emergency right now, and by the time you get to the nearest hospital, or whatever, it could be crucial, especially if you're in the middle of the woods. But you'd be able to call up, whether it be CVS or call up whatever pharmacy department, say, look, we got this situation going on here right now. We really need this medicine, or we really need this right now. And they're able to fly that to them. And I can see the market for that. It makes sense. I'm all for it. And I understand it's going to go beyond medical. It's going to go to the simple fact that there are going to be people who just want supplies now in general. I mean, Amazon is really seeing a big demand for their one-day service now, because there are people who are wanting stuff right now and not really wanting to drive through traffic and go to the latest Walmart or wherever to get whatever they need, especially with Amazon being cheaper and with a lot of their equipment. I can see that being a demand, and it makes sense. I look forward to seeing what they're going to do with it, how they're going to be able to maintain it. I want to know how this will continue to open up areas in the market as far as demand and consumerism. And it's going to be something that is going to really push where we can go. And I look forward to seeing where we go with that. So while we're talking about stuff being delivered, I'm going to do a quick review of my vacuum cleaner that I picked up. This is a real quick review. Basically, I picked up a D-Bot 500, and it actually works with your Google Assistant, which I haven't paired with my Google Assistant yet. I did pair it up with where I can use the app now. And honestly, for using it to keep up and clean up, like just running through every day or twice a week or something like that to maintain, your carpet being clean and not really having to. I think the biggest application for this is when you're gone and everybody's at the house, you can push a button and it can run through the house real quick and vacuum things up. And that's where it's good for. Now, the biggest thing is going to be, obviously, is knowing your area. And I think for the first couple of times, you may want to sit there and watch it and look and see what it gets hung up on while it vacuums. Because if it get hung up on certain things while you're here, imagine when you're gone and it's knocking things over, which it's not supposed to. But I think the biggest thing it would get caught up on would be cords. So if you got cords in the way or something in the way, I can see where it can get stuck on something. Now, for the most part, if it do sense that it gets stuck on something, it tries to back its way out of it. But again, you're looking at a device that it's a robot. It's don't have the mind of a human. It don't realize that I am hitting, an object, or I'm about to run over this. It don't have that sense. So the big thing is, and it tells you in the manual, is make sure you pick up before you leave. Now, as far as the capacity, as what it can hold, it do not have a big capacity. So definitely not meant to to clean up a lot of dirt or whatever. So this is mainly, I think, for maintaining. If you already vacuumed your carpet throughout the week, and this is mainly just to do like a quick dust up real quick, just to kind of keep the carpets clean, keep it fresh. It works out good. And one of the things I was able to do with it paired with, and this is why, and I hate to step back from what I'm trying to review here to bring something else up, but I almost have to. So last year when they had Prime, I decided to pick up one of these cameras for pretty much where you could basically see what's going on in your property. And the camera I have right now, basically from a remote site, I can, on my phone, go to it and I can see what's going on live. And basically what I end up doing, just to kind of test it, is use the camera, turn it on from a remote area so I can see the vacuum cleaner, and then make sure wherever the vacuum cleaner is going, I can kind of watch it, make sure it's not getting hung up. And I use it that way, where I basically, after I went to work that morning and say, hey, look, I just kind of want to do a quick dust up real quick, especially in an area, especially right there by the entryway, where mainly as soon as I open in, because even though it's summertime, every now and then I have leaves and dust and everything that may have blow in around that entryway, to kind of have that just run over that area is actually something that's good, and one of the things that is beneficial for me. So it does that pretty well. Overall, I think it's a good buy for me, especially for what I paid for it, and I would still continue to use it for that application of just keeping mainly around the entryway, just kind of freshed up and clean and maintained, and I like it for that. So overall, I think I say a good buy, but I can understand someone might want to do that because it's not going to be something that's going to replace your actual vacuum cleaner. You're still going to need your regular vacuum cleaner for the big stuff, for getting around certain areas. But for, like I said, just for dusting up, this is what it's coming in. And if you got the money to kind of spend on this, you're a gadget person, you'll probably gravitate to this and you will like it. Another topic, this is from Ice Universe, and he posted on his Twitter page that Apple in 2020 could be looking at going to a switchable 60 to 120 hertz refresh rate screen. And this trend of 120 hertz refresh rate or any refresh rate on the screen started a couple years ago with the Razer. And the Razer phone, again, was a gaming phone. And they brought that out there with that 120 hertz refresh rate so that, well, when it came to gaming, it was smooth. When it came to scrolling, it gave you that smooth experience versus a choppy one. It just made it feel, overall, it gave you a much better user experience. And with more companies doing that, like Samsung, I got that with OnePlus, the OnePlus 7 Pro. It may be the new standard to kind of see that refresh rate where it's 120 or 90 or whatever, where it's constantly refreshing to keep the overall device running smooth, feeling smooth, having that better overall experience. And even though it do take a little bit of a hit to the battery life, I say it's something that is worth it for me, because if you get to the point where the battery gets low, first of all, a lot of us have these quick chargers around here, or we can give it a bump charge, or we're in a situation where it's like, all right, I'm gonna be on my battery for a little bit, whether it be because I'm running back and forth to the hospital, I got something going on, or I'm traveling or something like that. Then you have the option to bump it down to a lower refresh rate to save on battery life. So you have that option. And for me, I am personally, if this becomes the new norm, I would not be opposed to that. I'm actually liking the simple fact that that may become the new norm. But let's go ahead and conclude my Pixel or Nexus-Pixel phone history, and I'm going to conclude it with the Pixel saga. Now, you can go on my website to see this and follow up all I went with this. So let's talk about the Pixel. So the first Pixel, the Pixel XL, it was made by HTC. And basically, all they did was take a retread of the HTC One A and made it into the Pixel. Basically, Google went to HTC and said, look, we wanted to come out with a Pixel phone, or our phone that really signifies the brand that we're trying to put out there. Basically, we're trying to have a flagship that can compete with Apple, it can compete with Samsung, and we wanted to be able to commercialize it more than we did with the Nexus brand. Basically, we want to make made by Google mean something, and we need you guys to produce a phone for us. And when we do put this out there, we will have the partnership with Verizon, as it will be exclusive to Verizon. And they really feel like it can do something with it. And the first Pixel, even though I didn't pick it up, and I will tell you my reason for it, I do like what they was trying to do with it. You know, I like the look of it, the back, that glass look, especially on the top. It just had a way about itself where it separated itself from the masses. It really looked like a phone that was worth picking up. In fact, I do have a Pixel now because I ended up buying a Google Pixel almost like a year or two last year. And I bought it because I just wanted something to test Google's upcoming beta software on. And that's what I got it for. And overall, you know, I can understand why people gravitate to the device then. My issue at the time, and it continues to be an issue I continue to have with Google, is the simple fact that, well, when the Pixel came out, you had Samsung and Apple not only gravitating to less bezel and having more glass on their screen, but they were going to water resistance. And you didn't have that on a Google Pixel. And for a phone that was selling at a flagship level, competing with those, as far as price point with those two companies, for it to be missing that, I felt like, well, why would I pay for a phone that missed those two features? Now, when this phone came out, they kind of wanted to pair this with their Google VR glasses, which at the time, Google felt that VR may be something that they wanted to latch on to. It may actually do something in the market. So Google was really wanting to get in our hardware business, and they wanted to say, look, made by Google, we can put out some good hardware out there. And they paired it with a lot of devices they were going out there. And you're still seeing that today, whether it be their assistants. We're starting to see their assistants become displays. So they're really trying to do more in the hardware business. And for them, it's a good way to kind of show off their platform, especially their software, in a way where they can really use that to put to the market. So this is what we're working on, and it makes sense. So after the Pixel, they decided to continue on, and we kind of see this evolved into the Pixel 2 XL. Now, real quick, before I go to the Pixel 2 XL, I wanted to make sure I highlight one thing in particular. Now, even though there were some criticism with Google's Pixel and Pixel XL, they kind of benefited from the simple fact it came out the same time as the Note 7. Because the Note 7 had the issue with catching fire and it being banned. That actually overshadowed a lot of what Google was doing. So the simple fact that even though people may have complained, like me, that it had way too much bezel, it didn't have water resistance, well, the simple fact that you just wiped the Note 7 off the market, basically by default, Google's Pixel ended up rising above being, those considered the top smartphone of that year because of that. But let's go ahead and go to the Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL. So we had to enter the Pixel 2 and 2 XL. And Google, in some ways, did try to improve on what the complaints were. In other ways, I almost feel like they were kind of, rubbing our noses in it. For the Pixel 2, they decided to go even more bezel and make it like a huge chin and all that. But for the Pixel 2 XL, they did make a phone that hardware-wise looked much better. In fact, overall, the Pixel 2 XL had the opportunity to be the best phone that year. I mean, it was a solid device. It felt good as far as how smooth it was, how it performed. It just had the issue with the display. You had the blue tint, which, a lot of people were able to get around. But it also had that dull color, and people was complaining about finding dead pixels on the display. And as a result, Google actually extended the warranty for it for another year because of all the criticism that came from the Pixel 2 XL. Now, the Pixel 2 XL was made by LG, whereas the Pixel 2 was made by HTC, continuing on what they had did with the Pixel and Pixel XL, which were made by HTC. The irony, which ironic to here, is that had Google relied on Samsung for the display on the Pixel 2 XL, just like they did with HTC, I don't think you would have had the same criticism and same backlash as they did with the Pixel 2 XL. But they didn't. And even though the Pixel 2 XL aesthetically, Google got it right, they didn't get it right when it came to the most important part, and that's the display. Something that people are going to look at over and over again. And then here we get to the Pixel 3 and 3 XL. This is my problem continuing with Google, is the simple fact that we are continuing to see a problem where they're just, when it comes to hardware, it's like they're not with the times. It's like they almost like a year behind with their hardware, and we're continuing to see that. With the upcoming Pixels. Now with the Pixel 3 XL, this was a year, and I talked about it a lot on my channel and on the website, where OnePlus had came out with the OnePlus 6T last year and had all up to 8 to 10 gigabytes, or 8 gigabytes of RAM on that phone, and was half the price of a lot of the leading smartphones out there, with the only complaint people had was the camera. And with the Pixel 3 XL, even though you had really the only thing on that phone that made sense was the camera. Basically, all they did was take the Pixel 2 XL, the exact same phone, put a giant notch in there, and that was it. Supposedly improved the display, and even though you didn't have that blue tint, the display still kind of felt dark, and it really wasn't vibrant, and then kind of, especially when you had other phones to compare with, it felt like, and still feel that way, because it just felt lacking. And honestly, the Pixel 3 XL was not the better phone. In fact, the better phone this year is proven to be the Pixel 3a and 3a XL, because price-wise, it makes sense. And as we get to the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL, I'm really hoping that Google pay attention to the complaints that people have with their hardware. The problem is, I don't think they are. And because of that, I don't think we're going to continue to get a device that's worth continue to invest in, especially when, again, you have the lesser models, the A and A XL models that are out there. It's like, if you have the option between that and a flagship model, to me, those are the better buy, because my issue with Google remains the same. If they don't have the heart to provide flagship level hardware for their flagship level phones, they should not be in the flagship business. And right now, the simple fact that they're trying to be in the flagship business, but they're not wanting to put flagship level hardware, flagship level RAM, flagship level displays. They basically want to get around with, we got the best software, so you should be okay with it. That is no longer the case anymore. Because as much as I talk about Google software, and that being the thing that should be attractive to people out there, as far as those who are big into Android, before I would tell people, especially the no phone, that if you really want to experience the best of Google software, you need a Google Pixel. I can't say that anymore, because my OnePlus 7 Pro software-wise is better than my Pixel 3 XL. Period. Even with the camera being a difference, well, now that I can sideload Google's camera to my Pixel 7 Pro, the difference is to the point where I can get around that. And if I'm someone who really want the Google's camera, I'm really wanting that, well, I might well save my money and pick up the Pixel 3a. And I have a camera and still have a phone that performs where I want it to be, as far as a flagship level. And even to those who I may bring up, those Samsung fans, telling them that you should check out Google's software, if they was asked a question, well, tell me, and I actually had someone ask this question to me, as I would tell them that, well, on my current Pixel, I'm running Google's Android 10, something that they wasn't running. And they asked the question, so tell me, what about 10 that is worth me checking out? What on this software is worth me giving up this great hardware to check out? And to be honest with you, I didn't have an answer. It's not like I can say, or the theme manager, because they don't have one. And quite frankly, OnePlus have a better theme manager than them, and they're not really having much of a theme manager. So I can't use that. Maybe their call screen app, but that's already available on the Pixel 3, and you can get that on the Pixel 3a if you want it. So honestly, there is nothing in Android 10 right now that I can tell someone that you really need to check out Android 10. Now, yes, I'm pretty sure when version 10 do drop, we will see a lot of under the hood stuff. We will see some tweaks that'll be, welcome for Android. But the honest reality is that you're going to get those same tweaks and stuff with other manufacturers. So if other manufacturers are going to eventually adopt Android 10, and you know it's coming, is it really worth giving up the lesser hardware of Google in favor of their software? Or let me rephrase that. Is it really worth forsaking the better hardware out there and a Samsung and a OnePlus for Google software? And until Google can prove that their software is really worth that, especially since we know that these other manufacturers are going to pick it up, the answer is no. And that is the problem that we're going to continue to have with Google until they adopt the practice of bringing the flagship level hardware and really going out there and producing hardware that people are going to want to buy, hardware that really competes. It's kind of hard to tell someone that, yeah, you should give up what you have for stock Android anymore. Because the reality, there are companies who are doing stock Android better than what Google is doing. And if you have companies that are able to do stock Android better than what you are doing, and that is supposed to be your stick of why people should come to you, it makes people wonder, why are you here? Why do you exist? And I had to ask that question. Playing with the OnePlus 7 Pro this week, I felt like they did a better job or gave me a better version of stock Android than what Google gave me. And why did I ever need to pick up my Pixel 3? Why does my Pixel 3 XL, why is it here? I know the camera's better, but how often am I needing that great camera over just what I have now? And is that great camera that much better than what I can do with the OnePlus 7 Pro? Especially when I can use some of these photo editing apps to improve in whatever area I need to use. That's the question that we're going to battle with as we continue to get closer and closer to the release of the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 4 XL. And this is something that Google really needs to take to heart. Because if they're really wanting to get this flagship business, they're really wanting to make Made by Google mean something, it needs to have the backing that shows that Made by Google means something. Because people are no longer dumb to what's going on in the market. Even those who are not big into tech have ways of knowing what is considered good and what is not. What is worth buying, what is not. What is the better buy, what is not. And with more people putting this information out there, and more people able to get this information easily, it makes sense why people are less likely to pick up your device. Especially when, well, the thing you're supposed to be good at, you're no longer doing better than the competition. This is a neXup podcast. Thank you for joining me for yet another week. I enjoy continuing to bring content to you every week, especially involving consumer tech, smartphones, and thank you for all you who are listening and those who listen later. Continue to, again, follow me on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and now TuneIn Radio. Have a good week. I'm out.